And we're live. Right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another week of all the live excitement that a live stream brings. So first of all, thank you all for being with us this evening. I can see you all signing in there. So Stu, Scotty, Loudmouth, Harry, Mr. Joe Cool, et al. So listen, so as you folks join, I'll do my little preamble, shall I? Because it gets me warmed up, actually. If you're watching this on Facebook, like and share it. If you're watching it on YouTube, like, share, make sure notifications is pressed. And also go over to brand YouTube, link below, and subscribe over there as well. With the many hundreds who now follow me over there, do that one, please. That's all good stuff. And then all my other platforms you can see down below. By the way, apart from like Odyssey and BitChute and brand YouTube, I want you to also subscribe to my Telegram account, by the way, which is proving to be great fun and so much more enjoyable than the censorious big tech of Twitter. Bye-bye, Twitter. I'm off to do other things. So anyway, good evening, Chris. So if you like what you're saying, give it the thumbs up. Now, I know you only can give it one thumbs up on this platform, but one thumbs up will be good. So if you can do that, that'll be excellent. And then last but not least, and you shouldn't forget this, altnewsmedia.net/donate. If you can go up there and drop £1 in the hat. Have you done that recently? Can I ask you that simple question? If you haven't, maybe you might want to think about that. Here we are. It's in May. We're getting well through 2021. And I think that it would be good if you could show a little generosity, show a little kindness. So anyway, listen, that's enough. That's enough waffle from me. So, of course, it's a Monday night. And a Monday night's very special in so many ways. But what makes it most special is the fact that we have our usual, but always special Monday night guest, Rebecca Butler, on the stream. So welcome to Rebecca.
Hello, David. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all. And wow, what a busy live stream you've got tonight, David. That's brilliant.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Rebecca, the folks are always very supportive of me. I see people, Shalini Varma is saying that the weather is miserable. Yeah, it is actually. We've had like monsoon conditions today. So ironically, the pubs are open. Well, the beer gardens are open. But you need to have a really big canvas or you're going to get very, very wet. What's it been like with you today?
It is blowing a hoolie, and I've got scaffolding up with a canopy, and if it lasts the night, I will be surprised because the pressure is dropping really, really, really rapidly, and it's a downward graph with no flattening out. So I don't know where the pressure is going to end up, but if it continues to drop at this rate, we're going to have some big winds overnight.
Yeah, I remember some years ago, we were getting an extension put on the house, and the guys they built up to the first floor, one wall, and there was a mighty wind came. And about 3 a.m, we heard this incredible sound, and the whole bloody thing collapsed. I found my back wall in my back garden, which came as a shock. But there you go. I
was going to rename Skipper Tonto and put on my red shoes, but I think the cultural reference might be lost on people beyond a certain age.
just click those heels 3 times. I'll see you in Kansas. So hey, Rebecca, lots of stuff to talk about as always. Oh, by the way, hello to Tony and George and. The other thing to say, I meant to say, super chats are enabled. So if you want to get your voice thoughts or questions answered, that's the best way to do it. Forgot about that. I always forget about that, Rebecca. So hey, listen, lots to talk about. I want to talk about football again to you. This is now becoming a scary theme for me. Talk about, in particular, Man United and some of the stuff we saw at the weekend. But first, I wanted to talk to you about a little story, true story, this, folks. Which I've already sort of chatted Rebecca through, but just to share with you all, because we saw today, Rebecca, that I think the UK recorded 1 death with coronavirus mentioned on the death certificate, which is, so that's really, really just through the floor. Basically, nobody's dying of this thing.
It's a Monday, though. They're always low on a Monday.
Yeah, but whether it's 1 or 10 out of a population of 67 million, hey, come on. So here's the thing. So, folks, I'm sharing a story with you. So this concerns friends of mine, young couple in their late 20s, engaged to be married, whose wedding has been serially postponed, by the way. So annoying, Rebecca, at that age when you have your big day. And I know loads of British couples have gone through this over the past, 13 months or whatever, where weddings have just been rolled forward. Anyway, long story short, the guy in the couple, he took on well. He wasn't feeling well towards the last few days of last week. And on Saturday, he started to feel very unwell with sharp pains in his sort of abdomen. So what happened was his fiance phoned up the out of hours doctor, which is kind of the process I think you do over here anyway. You phone the out of hours doctor and say, and so she said, listen, he's I just wanted to need your help. He's in my fiance is feeling really, really ill. And they said, got to stop you right there. You need is it COVID? And she says, no, it's not COVID. It's nothing to do with COVID. And they said, yeah, well, the thing is that, if you're going to come in to see us, you have to have a COVID test. So she said, oh, right. So she was given a number to phone to book the test that they would have had to go and pick it up or however they get it. So they phoned up the place to get a COVID test. And very sensibly, the person on the other end of the line said, have you got a cough? Have you got this? Have you got that? Answer, no. Right, then you don't need a COVID test. So then she phoned back again. Couldn't make this stuff up. She phoned back again to out of hours. And they said, you probably better go to A&E. So they went into A&E on Saturday night at 9 p.m. at night. There was one other person in a major hospital, not far from me. Major hospital, one person in A&E. So it took them 6 hours, I think. They were seen around about 3 a.m.ish in the morning. So that tells us something about what's happening in A&E, Rebecca. There was Saturday night, Sunday morning, nobody in it. And so 3 a.m., he was taken off to be seen. She went home to get clothes and stuff, if you're going to be kept in. And eventually, she got back a couple of hours later, but she couldn't get in because reasons. So he couldn't get back in to see her fiance. At that point, he had been examined and was told everything seemed fine, but he needed to see a surgeon. So strange, everything's fine, I have to see a surgeon. He wasn't in pain though, he was in great pain. So then after another 3 or 4 hours, he finally, I believe, was taken to theatre where there was an emergency operation because he had appendicitis. Now, I'm no doctor, but if you've got severe pain in your sort of abdomen, it's probably gallbladder, appendicitis, stuff like that. You would know more than me, Rebecca. But
Murphy's is the sign, Murphy's rebound sign. You press the abdomen, bottom right, let your hand go. The minute your hand go, you let your hand go. If it hurts, if they squeal, that's appendicitis. It's actually Murphy's sign.
Well, it was very, very painful. So anyway, so my point is, the reason I brought this one up is fundamentally, the NHS is in danger of being so obsessive, in my view, about COVID that it's missing things like this. The A&E was empty. There's nobody in it. And I know that this is not a reflection on any of the staff concerned, by the way. This is more of an institutional thing. Don't you think that we urgently need to get the NHS back to basics, back to effectively and rapidly treating someone like this and other people? Because other than that, as I said, his fiance was so pissed off to be told, it could be COVID. Well, sorry, it wasn't bloody COVID. So, over to you, Rebecca Butler. What say you in this one? Don't you think the NHS should be better?
Oh, I've always thought the NHS should be better, and I've always thought that the NHS exists primarily for its staff, first and foremost, and the patients as a secondary thing. I've always said that. We have excellent clinical staff, and they're often very much not responsible for this sort of nonsense. But we have to remember that, you know, when we were in peak COVID case time, 33% of all cases were actually being contracted in hospital. So there was a huge amount of infection. It's quite important not taking COVID in. And you also have to remember that when you're reciting a story about people who are just honest operators, there are people on the planet who will either lie or be so dumb they won't know what the symptoms are. So like your lot knew, but as we know, COVID can present in many ways. But just say, why has, I would say, hang on, why are you making this so difficult for a patient? Why are you creating these barriers to treatment, which they have paid for in their taxes? Why are you putting these barriers in place? Have a reception area where they do a lateral flow test. And a lateral flow test takes 15 minutes, in which time the dire emergencies, which an appendicitis isn't, but a heart attack, you can carry on treating the heart attack and do CPR, whatever you need to do with an unknown status. The minute you know they're positive, put them over there. The minute they're negative, put them there. It's not hard to sort this out, but to do it on the phone is the wrong thing to do. I'm sorry, people are anxious, stressed. Get them to the hospital and then do the lateral flow test. It literally takes 15 minutes. It's just not hard to do. These are just administrative hurdles. Ridiculous, utterly ridiculous.
But there's like also like a casual cruelty to it. So she was with him when he was in agony, and then she thought she'd go home and get his bits and bobs because it was obvious he was going to be staying in. And then she couldn't get back in again. The only reason she got in the first place was it was 9 p.m. on a Saturday night, and there was nobody there. It was a major hospital. This is one of the big five here we've got in Northern Ireland. So major hospital, Rebecca. She got in because there was nobody there, but she couldn't get back in. And I understand because he was on his own. He was on his own, Rebecca. So you can imagine what that'd be like. And his phone battery was almost out of power, and she didn't want him to be totally alone. And this is a fit young man in his late 20s. So she ended up, I think, begging some medical staff to bring in, a phone, the recharger thing for your phone. So that way they could keep in contact. I just think to myself, God, that's cruel. And that's a young couple. Could you imagine, Rebecca, if that was a couple in their 70s or 80s, God forbid, and I don't think the NHS, I don't think people mean to be mean, but that is mean. It really is mean. It's wrong.
Yeah, it's cruel. There's a lot of cruelty that goes on, and their defence is, well, we're busy, and you can see they're not busy. There's no defence. This is some middle manager somewhere has said in some policy making, has no contact with the patients, doesn't understand the distress and the fear that patients are in. When they ring up, come to hospital. We'll sort out the crap later. Get into hospital first. Yeah, and then please move over there to have your lateral flow test. This is just stupid. These are just barriers to people accessing the NHS, and we know for a fact that 35,000 people have died in excess have died at home this year, or in the past year rather. And we know by common sense. I don't know the numbers offhand, but we know that some of those are people who have died through absence of having instant availability to emergency services or fear about accessing emergency services. So excess death in the community it's like a quarter of all of the COVID deaths. It's bad. And I'm not talking about COVID deaths here. I'm talking about additional deaths in the community.
Additional deaths, I'll get that, Rebecca, Stu Frost here asked the question, if I can bring it up. He asked, David, why do you think people need to virtue signal about having a COVID vaccine, especially by making cringe videos? I got to say, Stu, I love the cringe videos. It's mostly a US thing. I've seen the best one I saw was those of you who may remember a band called Aqua, who had a song called Barbie Girl. Remember that one? I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Someone did, I'm a Pfizer girl in a Pfizer world. And I'm thinking, OMG, this is really bad stuff. And I've seen other stuff. Stu, I have no idea why people do this. I've seen people get their Pfizer, again, very much America, this, getting a tattoo, getting your Pfizer tattoo. When do you get your Pfizer tattoo, Rebecca?
I mean, the thing is that of there's 3 countries on this planet, actually, or probably 4. I'm going to go Israel, UK, US, and India. The uptake and the appetite for vaccines is actually so high that we don't really need to worry. I mean, it would be nice if more than 87% of the UK population did it, but is it really protected from all of the harshness of lockdown? We don't need them lecturing us. I mean, what we do need, if you want a message like that to go out, spin a positive story. Don't put somebody who we borderline are envious of or resent on our television screens. Just please don't do it. 87% have done it anyway. We haven't got a major issue. Some of our communities have a higher incidence of hesitancy and are refusing to have the jab. But as I've always said, a lot of the communities in Britain, courtesy of Sky Television, don't watch mainstream British English-speaking television. They watch Punjab Today or Gujarati Now or whatever. They actually don't access British media. But all the Indian subcontinent population actually will, because they're vaccinating with the AstraZeneca in India. So, some communities we are missing out on, but it's okay because the rest of us are very, very immune now. It's quite 70%. According to ONS, it's 70% now have antibodies.
I know you say a large percentage of us are very immune. Dead right, Rebecca, and that includes those like me who haven't had the vaccine and have a perfectly healthy immune system most of the time. But anyway,
we're challenging it with this one, but with
I think the odd thing is, Rebecca, don't forget that Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, they don't claim that it gives you immunity. That's not the claim. And we won't know if they do give you immunity until we've gone through a decent period of testing, which we haven't done anyway. That's enough. That's enough. That's
long term. Hang on, I don't want you to get banned. Long-term immunity, but they have reduced hospitalization and reduced the disease burden, which is really important. Always my number was hospitalization, as you know.
Well, actually, Rebecca, that's right. I mean, we've talked about this for a year or more, and the hospitalization levels have dropped to the point now where, I've quoted you one, it's an anecdotal story, but a major hospital, A&E, 2 people in it Saturday night. Come on, those hospitals are as quiet as they've ever been. But
now we're on a big push now. Thanks, Chris, the Queen of Vaccine.
Vaccine, Ms. Butler.
I'll wear my uniform next week. That's what I'll do. But David, we're now hospitals, all the inpatient beds are really filling up rapidly because we're now piling through the cancer work, the planned surgical work. So surgeons and anaesthetists are now working at full throttle, and my daughter's ICU is full with the sort of patients that you expect to see in normal times. So up in Sheffield, they did not have a COVID patient on ICU, certainly over the weekend, because she was on call and she was in rather on nights. No COVID patients in, but the regular, heart attacks, bleeds, accidents, all that sort of stuff in the ICU beds. It's gone back to normal.
And Rebecca, I guess you'd agree with me that the things you've just mentioned, to my mind, are the things that the NHS is spectacularly good at dealing with. It's really good for those kind of emergency scenarios, those conditions. That and so I guess you and I we both want to see a functional NHS where some of these rules that have been put in place, maybe for good reasons or otherwise, concerning COVID regs, they need scrap. We need to open the hospitals up. Sensible ways. There are things we could talk about, like, talking about A&E. Like I can remember in some years ago having taken my father to A&E on a Saturday night when he'd be unwell because of his own conditions. And those A&Es were full of drunk people, like they were. And that can't be 100% right. If you're drunk and you fall over, well, okay, you have to be seen, but you should be charged or something. It shouldn't be.
I don't so much mind that, because sometimes, a drunk person can genuinely injure themselves. But, certainly my experience of A&E, both as a nurse and then as a mum and as a patient myself, is it's full of wasters. It's full of people rash that they can't be bothered just to go to a pharmacist over, or I mean, I've sat next to people in triage, with a mother, and I'm like bored, and I go, well, what's the matter with you then? She says, oh, my baby's not well. Baby's like meanwhile fighting her and got arms flailing, and I said, why don't you feed the baby? And the baby goes glug glug glug, and I'm thinking, there's nothing wrong with your baby. Go home. But you're about to take up an hour and a half to 2 hours of somebody's time, and you're going to be sitting here for 6 hours, and your baby is perfectly all right. Or, somebody who's got a staple in their finger, they go to A&E. Like, what are you doing? You're sensible, David. Everybody on this live stream is sensible. But I promise you, on a rainy Sunday evening, it's probably the busiest time because people are bored and they go into A&E. And if one thing, when you say the A&E is empty, I'm thinking, yeah, they were overused. And the reason they were overused was because GPs stopped doing out-of-hours services. That's why the stress went on to hospitals. So, and now they're to go anyway, so it's a good thing. They're not wasting people's time, but we've got to get the emergencies back in. That is definitely for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, actually, that's exactly the point, Rebecca, because the reason that this young couple ended up going to the A&E was because the out-of-hours doctor, they weren't interested. They didn't want to see them. It's too much bother. It's like 9 o'clock on a Saturday night. Go away. So you're right. I mean, GPs, I'm afraid, have by and large gone missing in action, to my mind, and that deserves an inquiry. I doubt we'll see one, but I would like to see it anyway. Anyway, I've started on this one, Rebecca. We've gone for 25 minutes. Hey, listen, we talked about a few weeks ago. I was aggressively suggesting that the European Football League, it was going to do whatever the heck it wanted. And it didn't matter about the pyramid scheme system in English football, blah, blah, blah. And you said the exact opposite. Well, I have to say, I have to eat humble pie here, which demonstrates how little I know about football. But it turns out that the whole European Football Super League, whatever it was called, it kind of is, well, it's half disintegrated. And that's a remarkable thing to me. I was amazed at it, Rebecca, but you had said it. And then we've seen things like, for example, at Old Trafford yesterday. I'm sure, folks, if anyone saw it in the news today, there was pretty disgraceful scenes, really, where a bunch of fans somehow got themselves into the ground before the game with Liverpool, and there was quite aggressive scenes. I saw inside the ground, Rebecca, and also outside the ground. Now, I did see also very heavy-handed policing by a couple of officers, which didn't look great. But all the same, this whole football thing, I don't really get it. But it's like they won't go out and protest about lockdown, but they will go out and protest about the European Super League. Why is that, Rebecca Butler?
Yeah, well, this was a really interesting story. I mean, how did they get into Old Trafford? I mean, I've been to Old Trafford. Actually, when there wasn't a match on, I was at the... there was a go-kart track next door to it, and I won, by the way. I was the lightest because I was a girl. But anyway, you can't just get into a football ground, it's not that easy to actually access it. They managed to get in through like almost the emergency exits, the public exits. So you do wonder about that. But this is mob fury at its ugliest, because I actually have to say here, I feel sorry for the police. They get spat at, they get punched, they get kicked. The youth of today have zero respect for the police and will take a police officer on. And it's not on that people doing their job get assaulted at work. Absolutely not on. I have no sympathy for them. I do have sympathy for the argument because the Glazers, the Americans who own Manchester United, are actually the agent provocateur of this whole European Super League thing, because they've come from the American way of doing things, which is Super League. So that's how basketball operates. That's how baseball operates. They have the Super Leagues there, and it is a license to print money. And as we know, Manchester United is a public listed company, and Manchester United has shareholders, and shareholders demand dividends, and stockholders demand to see their stocks stay steady. In fact, probably pension funds are the institutional investors in Manchester United. What they cannot cope with on a financial argument is a disruptive element like Leicester coming in and winning the league. They can't cope with disruptors. So that is what is behind the Super League, that it is steady financial future. That's what they're looking at. But the numbers are eye-wateringly high.
Yeah.
So, I think it's quite right that Boris Johnson has weighed in and said, no way, Jose, you're not doing that. FIFA, the FA, UEFA, they've all said, you ain't joining in the European competitions. If you do that, you'll get thrown out of the EPL. And as I said, always I always look at India, and 8 channels on Indian TV stream English Football League. So this is a big thing around the world. It is not just the UK market. Manchester United, you jump into a taxi in the middle of Malaysia and they're wearing a David Beckham shirt, or whoever their favorite player is at the moment. Manchester United is a global product, and what they want is to maintain the global stock price. So the fans say, no, we want competition. Right. We want to travel. We want visiting fans. We want to shout at Man City. We want to beat Liverpool. We want to have Chelsea up and take the mickey out of them. The fans want the ups and downs of football because it's our national game. It's our national obsession. But look at the IPL in India. If you're a cricket fan, that is what a Super League looks like. Those guys are on millions.
They are, yeah.
These are listed companies.
I have to say, my wife is a big fan of the IPL. Again, I'm not, but so I'm unfortunately very familiar with the IPL.
So your wife does have some good taste, then, Dave.
She has some. Yeah. Well, she's a fan of actually just about every sport. I'm not a fan of just about any sport, but it was interesting because when you and I talked about it, I heard all your arguments, and it was but everything's validated what you said. The power of the fans and the media, and then the politicians, it was enough to decouple the juggernaut that I thought it was going to come. But there again, I think I'm right in saying that technically or legally, the English clubs have not left. They haven't left the IPL, because to do that would be a breach of contract, and that would cost a lot of dosh. So I bow to you in this matter. I don't know where it all goes.
Well, it's really interesting because they actually created the Super League back in January the 20th. I think the news first broke, and it was buried under coronavirus news, I think. And one of the issues with it is the law and competition law, and whether the FA or UEFA can exclude people, on this sort of anti-competitive EU law, and whether this is an issue that can be justiciable in the ECJ. This is the ECJ's like bread and butter, is anti-competition law. And that's why Boris Johnson intervened and said, well, I'll just change the law, mate. That's what I'll do. I will change UK law to say, if you are a member of FA, if you wish to play football in the domestic market, you will not be allowed to be in the Super League. And they will change the legislation if they have to. But I think you have to appreciate that by the time we get to that point, where there's a referral to the ECJ and it goes to the legal process, by then the corrosive and the erosion of EPL will have already happened when these teams are already out. So I'm beginning to think it feels a bit like a done deal. And are we all protesting a little bit too late? That's my worry. Is they'll just say, stuff the lot of you, it's worth 3 billion to each of us, so we're off.
That's okay, well, as I say, I wanted to revisit it because it's one of those ones where you were most definitely on the ball and I was not. But there we go. So obviously this is a big week, Rebecca, big week from an election point of view in the UK. And we know there's the council elections, there's the elections to the Scottish Parliament, and there's the Welsh Assembly, whatever that is. So we got all that. And then, and this is the one I wanted to chat to you about, we've got the London Mayoral election coming up as well. And here they are. I don't know, the chap on the top left, I think that's Lord Buckethead, I think he's called. Yeah. And then Lawrence Fox, and we've got obviously Sadiq, and we've got the green lady whose name evades me, and then we've got pretty and then we've got the Conservative candidate Sean Bailey, who. So look, first you go first. How do you think it's going to stack out in London come Friday?
Well, of course, we know, don't we, that we look at the Brexit vote, the inner cities voted Remain. We look at all the city council elections, they tend to go to Labour. And, there's a huge ethnic minority population in city centres, and there's a huge affinity for ethnic minorities to vote for Labour. They have an ethnic minority mayor. And so I think that Sadiq Khan has got to be the favourite. That doesn't mean by any stretch I think he's the best, but I think I am girding my loins for another unbearable 4 years of that man. He is an out and out failure. I just can't put it any stronger than that. Is Sean Bailey the best contender? No, I'm not sure that he's actually cut it. And I just wonder to what extent CCHQ has actually supported him in this campaign, because it doesn't feel as though they've given him the media reach. But then I don't get the London news down here, so it's hard to say. But Sadiq has a following on Twitter. He triggers a huge number of people on Twitter, so he's always at the top of the feeds. And for as many people as he winds up, there will be people voting for him. The ragtag and motley crew, they're protest votes. I'd love to see the Greens pick up more votes, actually. Anything to cut the socialist vote. Is the Lib Dem candidate? Cannot think of her name. Again, another Lib Dem candidate that is just bland, and who are they? So to cut Sadiq's vote, you need a strong Lib Dem, you need the strong independent, you need a really strong Green candidate. and
There's none of those things.
can get Sean Bailey through. But I'm sorry, Sadiq Khan is an abject failure. And the people of London, honestly, what on earth? What 1 to 40? Sadiq Khan? Surely not.
Sorry, I stand corrected, by the way. The candidate with the bucket on his head was Lord Binhead, I'm told. So
Lord Bucket.
Thanks for that correction, folks. It's you folks that make this so worthwhile for me. I mean, Rebecca, you make a lot of great points here. London is probably unlike any other part of the UK, where the demographies are so different. Now, I know that your point was broader than that because you talked about other cities as well, and you're right, Rebecca. But I think like London was actually, when it came to the Remain vote, it was like a place apart. And I believe that, hang on. No, I can't get this one right. It's Count Benface, Billy Piper's teeth. Tells me so much about someone who's going to poll about 2 votes. And by the way, I quite like Count Benface until I read his policies, one of which reads London should rejoin the EU. So he needs that bucket on his head rattled a bit. But no.
Vote for him, please vote for him. If you're a left of centre, please vote for him or the Greens to give Sean Bailey a shot. I'd have anybody rather than Sadiq Khan, but obviously Sean Bailey is the only credible one. But even if you let the Lib Demer in, it would be better than Sadiq Khan. But the lefties split their own votes, so Sean Bailey's the only right-wing one. Where's Mr. Gammon?
Well, come on, Atlas. I want to get to Mr. Gammon, someone I feel so much affinity for. But you haven't mentioned someone who has made a bit of a media impact, like him or not, and that's the actor Lawrence Fox, who is also the head of the, I think it's the Reclaim Party, I think. Is that right? Yeah. Yes. And to be fair to him, he obviously, because of his background, he has been he seems relatively effective in making an impact. But, I mean, I'd be very interested to see what kind of vote he attracts, because I think it'll be a personal vote around his magnetism.
He's polling at 1%, I think. I saw John Curtis had done an analysis on the polling polls. So, lots of Fox is on 1%. So, again, splitting the right-hand vote isn't going to help get rid of.
But there won't be 1% in it, Rebecca. So it doesn't make any difference if you look on it mathematically. But then there's the other parties. We mentioned UKIP. Hang on, someone says I went to school with Lawrence Fox. Very good. You see, you never know what you get on this stream. So Billy Piper went to school with Lawrence Fox. I got to say, I like some of the stuff that he says, but in a way that's neither here nor there. Doesn't who cares what I like? But I'm a Harrow chap. Again, we're getting so much information coming in here. It's so I love all this. Back to the point. There was at one point UKIP were going to make an impression here, and I do recall, Rebecca, back in January, I think February. I remember anyway, whichever of those ones, where a certain Katie Hopkins was announced she was joining UKIP with a clarion call, and then I remember that I believe she was then on the London list for UKIP. I don't know what's happened, but she's not on the London list anymore, and instead we have a candidate called, I love this, I think it's Peter Gammons. Is that right?
Peter Gammons. I know. Well, when I first saw that Katie Hopkins was standing for UKIP, my only comment was, well, this is going to end well. Bill Etheridge, who's a friend of ours, as you know, had a pretty similar view, frankly. So I'm not surprised. But, I Googled it today. I can't find a word. I can't find a word about her campaign on Google.
because she's not because I don't know if she's a member of UKIP anymore, and she's certainly not a candidate. And it's a strange one. I mean, to be fair to Katie, you know, and all things notwithstanding, you know, she's a big personality, Rebecca. She certainly generates, you know, media headlines and columns and stuff. Might have been all negative, but she does generate all that kind of stuff. So I was somewhat puzzled about the fact that with the big announcement came nothing, and instead we've got this chap who I've never heard. I don't know if you've heard of Peter Gammon, but I've never heard of him, and I don't imagine I'll ever hear about him again. And then you've got other people like David Curtin. Now, David, and I know again we might have different views, but David and he's been on my show in the past. So I mean, there's people like this, but the thing I don't understand is, and Rebecca, you can explain this one to me, because sometimes a more sort of detached voice like yours can reason things better than me. Surely these people all must realize, I'm talking about all the independents, all these small parties, that and Lawrence Fox, for all the media noise, 1%. So what is the point? What is the point in these people standing when they haven't a snowball's chance of getting anywhere near making any impact? Why do they do that?
I think, you know, people do it. They have a punt. You know, I suppose people like me, they put their head above the parapet and just have a pop at it and think, well, you know, it's something I'm going to do before I die, kind of thing. So I think there's that. There's some people, it's an overriding ego that motivates them, and it's hard to say. I mean, the motivations are so very different. I mean, a lot of people would say, well, you know, why would you stand and put yourself so much in the public gaze? It's quite vicious, and
it is, yeah.
Your own side can be quite vicious, and there's a lot of bitching behind people's backs and so on. So it's hard, and actually now, having done it, I actually respect anybody who puts their head above the parapet, and you know, suddenly you're on Wikipedia and you're on the internet as a candidate. That's quite daunting. It's quite a big thing. So
it absolutely is, Rebecca. But I think sort of tangential to the London scenario, I believe it will be a clear Sadiq Khan victory. People need to brace. On every metric that I can think of, he's failed. It doesn't matter. He's about identitarian politics. The policies, the so-called policies, are off the radar. Did you notice he's got a new menopausal policy?
I mean, that thrilled every woman, didn't it? Absolutely. I mean, I don't know what the hell it's not that men can't talk about the menopause. It's just that women don't like talking about it. So please don't start doing it on our behalf. It's just a fact of life, of being a woman. You know, you have periods and then you stop having periods, and it's hell at both ends. But we also have babies and do lots of other things as well. But men have their own challenges. Can we please stop with the identity politics? We don't want Sadiq Khan launching into a debate on the endocrine function of the female reproductive organs. Sadiq Khan, did you just hear me? We don't want you as our advocate. You know, but you know, the other thing, David, is that something I picked up is that we're calling this like a super Thursday. So we've got City Council, County Council, and Police and Crime Commissioner. Nobody knows what a police and crime commissioner is. I mean, I can remember them coming in, and I think we're going to have very short memories because they're going to be going out as well. I know it's better than what it replaced, but I'm not sure either of them are necessary in a democracy. And I'm not sure that, you know, being accountable to the general public in itself should justify a political placement in what should be a job that doesn't exist. We've got a Crown Prosecution Service that is meant to things in the public interest. The police and crime commissioner, I have a particular problem with that role. But be that as it may, we also have county council and city council and borough council elections. So it's just all of them because we missed out last year. But not one person I've spoken to said, oh, thank God we're having an election. I really missed it last year. You know, I didn't have any leaflets for a whole year. I feel left out. Said no one ever.
But Rebecca, leaflets are what makes an election. If it wasn't for leaflets, where on earth would we peasants be?
We're carpet bombing people with the damn things, and we're writing green policies on the trees that we've told them we're going to plant to eat up the carbon dioxide that we tell them about. I mean, and listen, people of Winchester, I swear to God, if you elect me, there will never be a leaflet from me, ever. I'll have all your email addresses and I won't sell them, and I'll send you out communications. You can block me or not read me. It's at your pleasure. I'm not sticking my hands through letterboxes. I'm just not doing it. It's a complete waste of time and effort and trees.
I have to say, Rebecca, I agree with Scotty here, who says abolish the Scottish Parliament. Absolutely, Scotty, abolish Stormont, abolish whatever they've got down in Cardiff, the Welsh Assembly, or do they call it a Parliament now? I think they're so vain that they want to call it that. Abolish all these things. Tony Blair's devolution was the worst thing that ever happened to this country, in my view.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and you know, the Good Friday Agreement hasn't actually worked out that well, has it? Another one of his victories that he claimed, although the work had all been done before he signed it off. But you know, the devolution has engendered a hateful atmosphere of nationalism. So the very things that they complained about in Brexit, they actually set that all up by the devolution back in 2001. And we were saying it at the time that this is going to inevitably lead to nationalism. You know, Sturgeon is talking about a border between Scotland and England. A physical border is what she's talking about. I mean, she tried in the pandemic to put a border up.
She did. Yep.
On the end. So,
see, this is, Rebecca, where you see the SNP is driven by one thing, a profound hatred of England. I've said that to their face. They didn't like it, but it's true. They're driven by a hatred of England and a sort of an inferiority complex. Yet they take your taxes, Rebecca. They cream off thousands of pounds from the English taxpayer, which they then use to basically abuse the English taxpayer. I like to see, I agree with Scotty, I would close that Scottish Parliament down. The only thing is, again, we'll be able to know this at the end of the week. How well will the SNP do versus, you know, the Tories or the Lib Dems? I don't know. I don't know. I can't guess.
If we shut the Parliament down, they'll accuse us of Highland clearances again. So, but Sir John Curtis, he reckons that the SNP are actually going to lose some of their votes. He's saying that the pandemic recovery funds have, you know, swayed a lot of Scots against an indie ref and against independence, and that the SNP may not get that vote. And he's saying that the fund. I said this last week on this live stream. I think the Labour leader is pretty amazing. I'm very, very impressed with him. He's challenging Nicola Sturgeon, of course, in Glasgow. So I would love to see. Actually, I would love to see a resurgent Labour Party, I have to admit. And obviously, I would love to see a resurgent Tory party. But I think Labour has a place in Scotland. And, you know, it's not cutting through with the electorate because the coronavirus has demonstrated that they need our money. But Boris has played to the gallery, because the end of last week or over the weekend, there was a little bit of a shuffled in the back pages, a little byline that he was planning on multi-billion infrastructure spend on Scottish roads and rail to keep them in the Union.
Yeah,
because Boris Churchill does not want to be the PM that saw the destruction of the Union, and he will throw money at them, which may be their end game.
Yeah, but that makes them stronger all the time, doesn't it? I mean, you know, see, ultimately, we've talked about this before, Rebecca. There is a tension that will ultimately cause a chasm, one way or the other. I think when Tony Blair put this in place, it's been a ticking time bomb for 20 years, whatever. And I just don't see how it gets better. The one plus to it is that it ensures that Labour will never get into power in Westminster. But then, is that a good thing? Or does that just lead to lazy, complacent, authoritarian conservatism? So yeah, you can analyse it from different perspectives. By the way, I'm just pleased to see Jeff said on the stream we have called for the devolution and the removal of the Holyrood in Parliament, and also I see now, Jeff, what Wales needs to wake up and get rid of the fascist rabble led by the social worker Drakeford. Have you seen his qualifications, Rebecca? I mean,
yeah, but I mean, we've got MPs with marketing degrees. It's just there's a standard of intellect in politics is.
It's not good. It's not high. Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, some of the comments here, I'm just reading them here, Rebecca. Mark Drakeford needs hormone therapy. Chris Davis, it's time to cut this. Well, the thing, my whole dilemma in this is, I'm a unionist. I want to see a union, or I want to see a union maintained, because we are better, I think, as a united kingdom than 4 individual parts. I happen to believe that, but it doesn't work at the moment. It's not working, and it needs to be fixed. Although, did you see, Rebecca, that we've had our own issues here in the province of Northern Ireland, with Arlene Foster having to walk the plank and jump off the plank before she was thrown off the plank. And that's caused now, for the first time in 50 years, now, doesn't that tell you something? The first time in 50 years, there's a leadership for who becomes leader of the DUP. 50 years, first leadership.
Yeah. I'm still in some confusion over why that happened. I mean, she was, I suspect this is over the Northern Ireland Protocol, that she wasn't, spiky enough over it. And, they wanted somebody a little bit more choppy. And of course, they've seen her support a ailing Theresa May government, that Theresa May was clinging on with her fingernails and had to spend 4 billion on Northern Ireland to get the DUP support to get any legislation through Parliament. So Arlene Foster is, I honestly thought Arlene Foster came through the last 5 years. Actually, for me, she was one of the better leaders of the regions. Drakeford's a disaster. Cranky's a crackpot commie. We had Theresa May, who was just limping, and Arlene Foster was like a beacon of hope. But then Sinn Féin won so many seats at the last election. It was terrifying to see how many seats, what their popularity actually is quite high, although their leader
fundamentally, what done for Arlene Foster was the border up the Irish Sea has gone down like a ton of sick or whatever. It is horrendous. We have our assembly elections next year, so we've got 12. We're sort of 12 months behind the rest of the UK. So we have our assembly elections next year. The DUP have taken the view that they're not going to the polls with the same leader in situ as who presided over the protocol or the Irish Sea border. It wasn't their fault, actually, in some ways. I happen to know Arlene Foster along with most of these ones. And she wasn't the worst, but I don't know what a small party does. Her choice was this. Do you bring down the Tories Do you do that, or do you cut a deal to get as much money for Northern Ireland as possible? Now, that was a choice she had, and she chose the money. And we got a load of money. I disagree with that. I don't want Northern Ireland sponging off the rest of the UK, but that's just me. People were happy enough. Some people were happy enough about that. But once January the 1st came, Rebecca, once that border down the Irish Sea kicked in, her fate was sealed. So she's very unpopular now with grassroots unionism. And
but so this notion of consent in the Belfast Agreement, which is effectively reflected in the withdrawal deal that we had with Europe, in that, Stormont had a say on where it wanted the border, whether it was on the Irish Sea or on the island of Ireland. But I've always struggled with this, because I think that the collective brains who were working on this should have foreseen what was going to happen here, should have seen that there would be a political scalp in Northern Ireland, and the political scalp is the ally. So you're going to have, I think, in the next elections, not this one, but the next one, you're going to have a situation where there's going to be a big nationalist debate. And could we, or should we, given the mood in the EU has changed, shouldn't we have a common economic zone on the island of Ireland, where the EU borders are on the ROI? Because given that the ROI, 80% of its trade is with the UK anyway, very little of their trade is with the EU. Why can't we have a common economic zone with them for all of the trade we do with them, and prevent the sort of the imports into the EU in Ireland? Isn't that the way to stop the violence and stop the discord, is to say, let's create a new structure, let's call this something new, and let's call it the Irish Economic Zone, or let's get rid of all the non-tariff barriers to trade that people are suffering with now? Because that would benefit fishermen, it would benefit the farmers of Ireland, who need our help, because the Brazilians are nipping at their heels on beef imports into the EU. So surely Ireland would say, hey, UK help us, and we'll go, yeah, sure, no border.
Actually, as I pointed out in the short video I did earlier today, ever since Joe Biden has announced he wants to see a minimum global corporation tax rate of 21%, and given that Germany and France have said, yeah, we can go with that, and the Irish CT rate, as I'm sure you know, Rebecca, is 12.5%, the lowest in the Western world anyway. And one reason for why the Irish economy has performed so well over the past 25 years. The Irish are going to find themselves in a really perilous scenario. They cannot go against the wishes of the United States and the EU. They can't. Doesn't matter how much they beat their chest down in Dublin. If it's going to be 21%, it's 21%. And if it goes to 21%, their economy goes into meltdown. And in fact, the only way they could sustain things, ironically, would be if they applied to join some kind of British-Irish federation where we keep our lowish.
They'll plunge into a deflationary.
100%.
Not careful.
Yeah.
I mean, this sort of enterprise zone that they created on the ROI, it was a fabulous thing, because Ireland is so dependent on trade with the UK. Now, I would say, sorry, Billy Piper's teeth, I am trying to talk sense again. Let's be pragmatic. Ireland, what are you actually getting out of the EU? Why don't you just have your
nothing?
Dip to euro and come in with your old mates, all the the stuff relating to partition, it's all gone. So the EU is worse than us, loves. Come and join our little economic zone. Australia and New Zealand do it. Nobody objects to that.
Well, especially, Rebecca, that the Irish Republic is now a net contributor to EU budgets, and yet they have been told, I read in the press, that if they want to get their coronavirus recovery monies, they've got to be good little boys and girls and accept corporation tax going up by almost 100%. So it will absolutely devastate the Irish economy. Although you say, well, what's in it for the Irish? For the Irish people, nothing. There's nothing in it for them. For politicians, posturing politicians like Leo Varadkar and Micheál Martin, there's the guarantee of political sinecure. They'll be okay. They'll be looked after. But and Scotty's right. Ireland was a tax haven, but I don't see a problem with that. I wish that, for example, Northern Ireland. I remember arguing with Sammy Wilson, who is current MP, but back in the day, he and I shared a public stage, and I argued back in 2010 for Northern Ireland's corporation tax to match that of the Irish Republic. So you would actually have had, Rebecca, what you've talked about. You would have had a kind of an island, a dynamic low tax island, which, whilst disadvantaging our friends in Scotland and Wales and England, for a small place like us, it would have been a good idea. It never happened. They could never agree to it. Sinn Féin would not want to see Northern Ireland prosper.
They would say that neither Cork nor Dublin should be a free port. they wouldn't turn that opportunity down. We're having free ports in Southampton down the road. We're looking at a serious economic boost with free ports. Dublin is ideally placed for a free port. You would not turn that down. Come on. I think, honestly, David, I think we have to stop looking backwards with politics. I think we have to start looking forwards with politics and say, Biden, sling your hook, EU, sling your hook. Ireland will do much better with us. We will be working together.
Absolutely. I want to see cooperation. I've been asked, Rebecca, during the plantation of Ulster, were your ancestors Scots or English folk from Lancashire, Yorkshire and Northumbria? Actually, my ancestors did come across, we actually started off, in the Nordics. There's some Viking blood somewhere buried in me. And then we came across to the lowlands of Scotland around about that time. And then we came across here. And then we went across to the Appalachians. And that's where the Vance dynasty is. So more or less. So that's my potted history. So I claim Viking, Lancastrian, Scottish blood with a dash of Irish in it as well. So there you go. Who says I'm not diverse? People want diversity. I'm giving you bloody diversity. Yeah, someone said, Billy Piper. Hey, Billy, you're banned, pal. You will never be back in this stream.
I was just thinking, David, I'm going to get you one of those hats with the horns.
Yeah, you should get me one of those. Yeah. But, put it like this. I've had an unnatural attraction to ABBA. Well, certain people within ABBA for a long time. So maybe that's what it comes down to. Anyway.
Oh, Benny.
Anyway, I knew Agnetha had an unnatural. I was strangely interested in her. Anyway, look, folks, this is the way the hour goes by too quickly. We rattle by. But listen, first of all, we have to wrap things up. Thank you very much, Rebecca. It's always such a pleasure to have you in the stream. Thanks for being here on this Monday night with us. And of course, I should point out that, of course, Rebecca herself is standing in local council elections on Thursday. And whilst I basically have an attitude of a plague on all their houses, just myself speaking, I absolutely want to see Rebecca succeed on Thursday. So I'm sure you'd all join with me in supporting Rebecca and wishing everything works out well for her down in her neck of the woods. So that's that to say to you, Rebecca. Thanks all of you folks on the stream. Thanks for all your comments. Thanks for the super chat. Thanks for supporting me. I should be back multiple times during the week. So brace yourselves, folks. We're going to have a lively week ahead. So, Rebecca, I think that's everything from my end, unless there's anything you want to add.
No, just if I could just have a show of support on Wednesday evening when David and I do a live stream. I would love to have you guys in the background, just throwing some questions at me. If you could bear to just come on the Wednesday evening live stream. That's the last live stream before the election on Thursday, obviously.
Yeah, so join us then when we'll be having a chat. So you can come along and interrogate the candidate here. I'll be in my intermediary role here. You just tell me what the questions are, and I'm sure Rebecca will have an answer for you. She's had an answer for anything I've ever asked her, so I'm sure she'll have one for you as well. So, so lots of nice comments here, Rebecca. You got a lot of support here. So Scotty, yeah, it's a date Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Join us then. And in the meantime, folks, that's it from us. See you all soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.